Hey, it's Ben Wise, ZOAR Fitness, and this is the name game. Workout number 33 is Mermaid Man. For time with an 18-minute time cap, we got 50 heavy wall balls. So this is 30 pounds for males, 20 pounds for females to the normal height. So 10 feet for males, 9 feet for females. Into 40 chest to bar pull-ups, 30 deadlifts at 315 or 205 respectively for males and females, 20 deficit handstand push-ups, 8 inches for males, 5 inches for females, and 10 box jump overs to 40 inches for males and 30 inches for females. Let's get into standards. So the wall ball, pretty simple. You get squat below parallel, parallel being hip crease below the knee, the top of the knee, and yeah, again, the center of the mass where the ball actually touches the wall needs to be, or the target, needs to be above that 10-foot or 9-foot line. So it cannot touch the line, it has to be over the line. So yeah, and then chest to bar pull-ups, pretty simple. Starting from a dead hang, you have to touch your chest to the bar. Chest is designated anything below collarbones, counts as your chest. 3, deadlifts. Touch to the floor, lock out at your hip. When you lock out your hip, your shoulders have to be behind your waist or in line with your waist. It cannot be in front where you kind of don't extend fully. So make sure you extend fully. The other thing for the deadlift is that you can't bounce it off the ground, right? If you're bouncing it where you see that you're kind of bending your arms as you lower and then punch it into the floor on the way back down, that's a no rep, right? You have to keep your arms nice and long. If you get like a little bit of like wobble out of it, that's fine as long as you're not actively pulling your arm shut and then kind of throwing it into the ground at the bottom. So as long as you're not doing that, you're probably okay. And then handstand push-up. So in terms of width, I'm gonna let you do what you want in terms of width, but the big thing is you're actually at the correct deficit in line with your pad, right? So if you're using an ab mat, it's gotta be 8 inches for males, 5 inches for females above that ab mat surface. The other thing you can do is just put down a flat like gymnastics mat, for example, and then just put your plates or whatever you're gonna use as like your 8 inches or 5 inches for deficit on top of that, and that works perfectly fine. So yeah, that's the handstand push-up. The big thing besides the actual deficit is just make sure you're locking out your elbows at the top of the rep, and hips have to be in line with the body. So I don't want your hips sagging against the wall. Keep the hips off the wall. That's one of the things that a lot of in-person competitions I've been going to. That's a different standard for a lot of people. So keep the hips off the wall at the top of your handstand push-up. If you start sagging, start no-repping yourself. And then the box jump over, pretty simple. You have to jump up, and you cannot, not that I don't even think anybody could step up 40 inches or, 30 inches for females. I think you probably could, some of the taller females, but 40 inches, no male can step that up. Anyway, you gotta jump it up and make sure when you jump it up that, that your hands don't touch, so you can only touch your feet to the top of the box. That being said, I would use a wooden box for females to get to your 30-inch line because it tends to get really wobbly if you use a foam box to a 30-inch mark. And then also for males, I would probably put 2 20-inch boxes if you have that available to you on top of each other, and then take a elastic band and wrap it around the both ends of that. So it's holding it together, it's one unit, it's not gonna slide off where the one box slides off the other one and you fall onto your back or land on the box and hurt yourself. So safety first, be smart about that. Okay, so those are all the standards. We got 5 different movements that we're going through, so it's quite a bit. Anyway, setup. I would say I don't have like a set layout plan. It's gonna depend on your gym and all the different equipment and what else is going on at that time. But I would think about as you're sort of doing your movement prep and like visualizing, okay, I'm gonna be going from my wall ball station to my pull-up bar, to my barbell, to my handstand push-up station, to my box. And think about, okay, where can I put this where my transitions aren't gonna bleed and make them really long, right? That'd be like the extent of what I think about in terms of setup, just because it's a chipper, you got 50, 40, 30, 20 reps, and those are all pretty, and 10 reps, and they're all pretty like high power movements. So it's not like the turnover is just going to be so much that you have to be sprinting from one station to the next. It's going to be a very sort of relaxed transition where you can kind of take a little bit of time to walk over and pick up your deadlift bar, because it is 315 or 205, right? So that being said, I would still be considerate of how you set up your space. Other workout thoughts. This time cap, the 18-minute time cap, is not aggressive for most people with the movements down, right? And with the movements down, I don't just mean like standard movements like in CrossFit in general. I mean in this workout, if you can do the movements, right? So how good are you at deadlifts, touch and go deadlifts at 315 or 205? How good are you at handstand push-ups to an 8-inch or a 5-inch deficit? That's a big deficit, much more than you're gonna see in a lot of workouts. So, I see the handstand push-ups and the box jump overs as the main bottleneck, right? So I think most people are gonna get through the deadlifts, even if they're heavy. You'll get through the heavy wall balls and the chest to bar, even if it slows you down a lot. But really, you're only gonna be hitting the time cap if for some reason you're failing a lot of reps with the handstand push-ups, or you can't convince yourself, or you're failing reps of the box jump overs. So that's like the reason I'm gonna have that time cap there, is in case someone is failing the reps of handstand push-ups, or doesn't want to attempt box jump overs, they can just kind of call it there at that 18-minute mark. So that being said, let's think about like how these transitions are gonna work, right? So in terms of strategizing this, I would first think about how it's gonna feel going from one, this is how I would do strategizing for most chippers, just so you know, about how one's gonna feel going from this movement to the next movement, how the next movement's gonna feel in that transition. And then after that, you can kind of go back and say, okay, what might be a good strategy to break this up? So, wall balls to chest to bar pull-ups. There's not a lot of interference there. Like, it's gonna get your heart rate up a little bit, but overall, like maybe some bicep, shoulder kind of fatigue, but overall that interference is gonna be pretty minimal. Chest to bars to deadlift. Again, they're both sort of pulling, but they're different motor patterns. And really the biggest thing is gonna be grip there. So if you're someone who does a big unbroken set of chest to bars, and you then go into deadlifts, maybe the grip's a limiter. I think for most people, they'll probably be okay though, and it's just gonna be something that, overall just starts to contribute to fatigue a little bit. Again, I think maybe upper back could maybe start to be a limiter, where wall ball, you have to support and keep that shoulder retracted. Chest to bars, you're pulling kind of almost horizontally at the top because of the kip and the way that is. Obviously deadlifts, you have to lock in your upper back, and then going into handstand push-ups, I think that could start to be a limiter for some people, and the shoulder, upper back limiter. And then lastly, you can think about going into handstand push-ups, again, how that upper back is still probably gonna be a little bit fatigued from that. And then how when you're trying to press up and back behind you to lock out that handstand push-up, how that can, again, be a limiting factor for a lot of people, especially when they need every bit of pressing strength they can get because the deficit is pretty aggressive. So yeah, those are the main things I would think about. Again, think about how you're gonna have that interference in each of those different movements, progressing from one to the next, and then create your break strategy after you've thought about that. Because I really think that if you're someone who, you just think about each movement in isolation, which is easy to do in a chipper, you don't think about how that fatigue is gonna accumulate, both in terms of like the movements themselves, but also just like systemically, like your breathing and heart rate and, thermoregulation, the whole thing. Right. So if you're someone who's just watching this and you aren't part of the protocol yet, you can sign up for Pro, which is also going to get you the Pro articles and the Vault as part of Pro. You can get a free week if you go to zoarfitness.com/pro-trial. So be sure to check it out. And for everybody else, best of luck on Mermaid Man.